This this took a turn. This took a turn like for a minute there, right? Where did that idea come from of, hey, let's just hard left turn from our typical, conversation. Welcome to Unapologetically Childfree. I am Maggie Dickens, your child-free hype woman, here to help all child-free people find their people, the community that you never knew existed, and now you can't live without. I am here with Rose, and I'm very excited because this is my first time talking with Rose outside of the DMs of the interwebs. And so we're going to chat a lot today about her new project, her new book. And so I'm going to let Rose just tell us about you and what's been going on with you and what you've been writing about and what you're bringing to the child-free community.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me on today. It's great to finally speak as well. So I'm Rose Diell. As you can hear from my accent, I am English. I'm based in London, and my book Fledging was actually released in the UK and Commonwealth last year, but I'm really excited to be bringing it to the US and Canada this year. It's coming out in October, and I've got a whole series of events lined up on the US East Coast and online coming up too, so keep an eye out for that. The book is about a woman called Leah who's in her kind of mid-30s, and she's really agonizing over whether or not she wants to have kids. She's a fence sitter, which is a term I think your listeners will recognize.
Oh, yeah.
So she's going round and round in her head, really feeling like she needs to make this decision. And essentially, no spoilers, it's on the back of the book. The book opens with her laying an egg. And so the story kind of goes from there. How does she deal with this egg? How does that relate to this big decision that she has to make?
This took a turn. This took a turn like for a minute there. Right. So one of the things I love, because you've told me a little bit about the book. And when I first read that, I was like, wait, did I read that correctly? Because so I'm an avid reader, and I average about a book a week, and between ear reading and eye reading. And so I'm not academic when I'm reading. I'm not in that kind of space, but there are some tropes that I don't like. I don't really like series because like after the third book, most of the time it's the same book for 15 more books and things like that. So I say all of that because having your main character not just sit with this decision of do I or don't I have kids? And then she talks, it's this big, completely unexpected event of laying an egg. So if you don't mind, if it doesn't share too much about the book, like where did that come from? Where did that idea come from of like, hey, let's just hard left turn from our typical, conversation?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, firstly, just to say about the egg thing, I know that that's kind of not for everyone, that kind of surreal approach. But what I would say is that actually quite a few reviewers have said that in the beginning, they were like, whoa, this is too strange for me. But as they kept reading, they got used to it, they accepted it, and the idea really kind of grew on them. I would also say kind of warning for anyone, the first chapter with the laying of the egg is a little bit graphic. And I know that sometimes puts some readers off. The whole book is not like that. It's not a graphic book in general. But I wanted to be true to the fact that, like a bat, laying an egg is quite a graphic experience. So yeah, to anyone thinking of reading it, please don't let that put you off. In terms of where the idea came from, I mean, it's basically sort of exactly what you said, that I didn't want to just tell a straightforward story.
Mm-hmm.
They often say that you write the book you want to read. And I think that's kind of what happened to me. It's not an autobiography. I haven't laid an egg. But like I was, going round and round.
That's good to know.
Like Leah, I was, going round and round in circles. And one of the things I do in those circumstances is I look for reading material. I go on the internet, I read blogs, I look for books. And whilst I did find lots of blogs, lots of amazing blogs, there's lots of great websites out there and, accounts like yours. And I found some great nonfiction books, like there's an essay collection called Selfish, Shallow and Self-Absorbed. I didn't find at that time as much fiction. There's just a kind of couple of books out there that I read. So one was Motherhood by Sheila Heti, which is quite literary. Like some people, I mean, I love it. I've underlined loads of bits in my Kindle underline. But some people have said, is that even a novel? It's really like one woman's thought back and forth, but not a lot happen.
Yeah, it doesn't read like a novel
exactly.
at all.
And then there was also Olive by Emma Gannon, which again is great, but it is coming at the issue from a more direct way. So the main character kind of goes to groups about this, etc. And I was craving something that just came at it from a slightly different angle. I've always kind of loved magic and fantasy, and this book is kind of not that, because it's more the one weird thing genre this one weird thing happens, but the rest of life normal. But I had just read The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which I think is somewhere on the bookshelf behind me. It's amazing. I really love that book. It's a bit more literary than Fledging. It's a bit more weird than Fledging, but in it, it's kind of a metaphor for a wife who is lacking agency and in a very traditional society in South Korea, and just a lot of weird stuff happens. It's kind of a modern day fable. She starts off saying she's going to become a vegetarian, which is not really accepted by her family in a kind of more traditional context. And then as the book goes on, she starts to believe that she's turning into a tree. And it was just so fascinating. To me, it was such a fascinating way to explore the issue. I just thought, how can I do something similar? How can I have like a modern day fable too, and find a less direct angle to explore this issue, which isn't just spelling out all of the thoughts in the style of an essay, but has a kind of different way of looking at it, a different angle. So I spent a lot of time thinking, like, what could be the weird thing that happens? I kind of just thought of the egg, and it just worked on so many different levels for me. I think one original title for the book was 1 in a Million, because I often, when thinking about this idea of do you want to have kids or not, I think there's a lot of this, like, what's the potential that could happen? What is the life that you could create? And I'm always like struck by the idea that, okay, yes, there's all this potential there, but at the same time, the chances that any one of us ever existed are so tiny. You know, when you learn about like fertilization and all of that, it's a tiny chance. It's not 1 in a million. It's like 1 in a gazillion. I don't know. But also and so it's kind of amazing to think. So in that sense, yes, you could create a life, but also the default in some senses is not to create a life or not to create that specific life. So I was thinking a lot about that and passing things on, because I think a lot of that links to kind of the desire for people to have biological children. And then the egg itself just became like a very real symbol, you know, sometimes in school and stuff. I mean, I don't know anyone who actually did this in school, but it happens in books and movies and TV shows. They do those experiments where they give the children like a doll or a bag of flour or something to like look after for a week as like a simulation of having kids.
This
happened. Did you do it?
No, this happened.
I already read about it.
Yeah. So I went to, this happened, okay. So I went to school in a couple of states in the southeastern part of the US. And I think this was both in North Carolina. So I had two. One of them was pantyhose, and it was filled with like, I don't know, stuffing and like chia seeds or something. So like you drew a face on it. It looks like a potato. At the end of the day, it looked like a potato, and you drew a face on it, and it had hair that would grow out like the, you know, like a chia pet kind of thing. And the idea is that you didn't take that home, but you had to water it, but not overwater it. You didn't, and you had to take care of this. I think it was like home economics or some, you know, some class like that. I had that, and that was fine because I didn't have to take it home. And then we had the baby dolls that had, it was an actual doll that felt kind of big and kind of heavy, and you had to take it everywhere. And there was a key that you had around your wrist that when the baby started to cry, you had to put it into the back of the baby and like turn it, but you had to hold it there. You couldn't just turn it and leave it, because obviously like when a baby cries, you can't just be like, here's a pacifier and like walk away. So it would cry at random times. So you were getting up in the middle of the night. It would cry during class. It would, all of this stuff. And I don't know what the lesson was other than you don't want children. Like I don't have any other lesson to giving like a 14-year-old girl a baby doll. It disrupts her sleep, disrupts her, like, I played sports and I don't know what happened. I don't know if like, I don't know how I was able to like go to, I don't remember that part. All I remember is I walked away from that like being very clear that I would not be the mother that everyone thought that I would be.
That is so fascinating.
Because I wanted to, I really,
it's not a real baby.
Like, I definitely wanted to give that baby back. Like, it was not.
Wow. Well, that is
for me. Yeah. So yes, it does happen at least.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I've only kind of read about it. There was a book I read as a kid that was about they had to bring a bag of flour everywhere. And yeah, I'm not sure what these are for. I don't know if it's like to teach about responsibility or it's to prevent teen pregnancy. I mean, as an aside, I do sometimes wonder about that. Like, did I just get so much anti-teen pregnancy messaging when I was growing up that it like over kind of, what's the word? You know, it went further than they wanted it to, and it stuck with me beyond teen.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of, I mean, obviously, just like your pantyhose thing is not a baby, an egg and what happens with the egg is not obviously is like having a baby either. There's tons of differences. But that was partly what was in my head with the laying of the egg too. And as her relationship with this egg and what happens with the egg continues through the book, it became a way to explore some of those feelings of ambivalence that fence sitters or mothers as well. And I think a lot of mothers have found the book really resonates with them too in a surprising way because of that sense of motherhood ambivalence. At times she's really drawn to the egg. She wants to protect it. She sees a lot of potential in it. At other times, she just wants to throw it away. I think that's a bit where she kind of, there's a few times where she considers destroying it in various ways or leaving it on a door or making an omelet. So it kind of works on a number of levels, and that's why it's about a woman laying an egg.
I cannot wait to read this book. So how long did it take you from like the percolating thoughts of potentially there's a thing that needs to be written, right? To like closing the book once it's like in your hands? How long did that process take?
So this one, so I should say, like, I'm an author. I like to think of myself as an author in general. I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was like 4 years old. So, my primary entry point to this wasn't originally the kind of fence sitter or child-free question. It was, I want to be an author. I'm thinking of what books I can write. But I also, did want to write about something that I really cared about, etc. So I was thinking about like, what's my next project going to be? And I was really like at that time, this was, I guess, around like late 2020. I had been going through a period of, a lot of obsessing, questioning myself. I kind of did that a lot earlier than a lot of people, more like around the age of 30. I think for a lot of people it can come a bit later, but I think it just depends on your personal circumstance. And like for Leah in the book, one of the reasons for her is that her mom is really ill, has a terminal illness. They don't know, how much time she has. And so it really kind of sharpens the grandparents question for her as well. And that wasn't exactly my situation, but I do have older parents. I was like in a long distance relationship at the time, which was like, makes you think a lot about like, is this definitely the right relationship? And do we want the same things? Because it's quite hard continuing in a long distance relationship. So anyway, I had been doing all this agonizing myself. And then I also just kind of really started to be struck by how every time I got into any like non-superficial conversation with female friends about our lives and what was going on, we ended up back on this topic, whether it was friends who, knew they wanted kids and were trying to have kids, but were doing IVF or whatever, or friends who wanted kids, but didn't have a partner and are like trying to strategize their whole lives around how they can, I think it's called decision stacking, like how they can line up to find a partner in time, working backwards from, when they think their fertility is going to run out or whatever. Or people like me who were really like, I just don't know what I want. I need to decide. And so I was really struck as well by like how much of a burden this kind of decision is on women at a point in their lives, more so than men, even though obviously men are affected by this too. And I'm not saying it's not difficult for some men, but one, because of just the level of societal expectation on women, but also the time thing. I mean, I think the biological clock in the sense of waking up one day and saying, oh, I want to have kids. I think that's been disproven that doesn't really exist. But the biological clock in the sense of your fertility does decline. And I'm now the other side of that hill. I think 35 is like a big time when they stop taking your egg donations in the UK anyway. There is that clock for women that there just isn't in the same way for men. They can have kids a lot later. So I kind of really wanted to write about that. So then I was thinking a long time, like, how should I write it? As I said, I think some things I've written in the past, I just kind of sit down and start writing without having planned it much. This was something that I marinated a lot longer, like maybe 3 or 6 months. I think I finally put pen to paper in early 2021. And then after a month or two, I shared the opening with my writing circle. And I've still got the email where I was like, I know this is kind of weird and not like stuff I've written before. Like, tell me if it's too much. I'm not even sure if I should continue with this project. But thankfully, they came back and said, like, it's amazing. It's really like bold. You're addressing taboos. Like, you've got to keep writing this. So I did. And then, I think it was about a year basically of writing and editing before I started sending it out to mostly small presses. But that's quite quick because I have a full-time job outside of writing. It's because it's quite short, and it was originally even shorter. I always wanted it to be a short book, like more of because I wanted that intensity of the going around in circles and all of that. And I want to be quite tight, and you kind of need a shorter book to do that. So originally it was actually like 25,000 words, which is very much a novella, not a novel. And so I was only sending it to small presses because larger presses don't tend to look at that kind of thing. Over the course of that year, then, I won't tell the whole story, but lots of back and forth, different people were interested, ended up collaborating with them, got like yes, no, maybe, etc. And the book kind of grew. And then I got the offer from my publisher. So that took about a year. And so now it is more of a just about novel length, full novel length, but the short end. So the good news for your listeners is it only takes a few hours to read if you've got a busy lifestyle. And you read it one sitting on a Sunday morning, But yeah, so it was about one. So kind of thinking about it for a few months, writing it so it was ready to send out for about a year. Then there was another year of like back and forth with different potential publishers and stuff like that. And then I signed with the publisher, and then it's another year for it to actually be published, which is quick. If you go with a big publisher like Penguin or Random House, it often takes 2 years. So yeah, started it like early 2021, published UK, Republic of Ireland, and Commonwealth August 2024. Now US and Canada October 2025.
So many questions. I have so many questions. So many questions. I am fascinated by just how you're able, anybody who is a writer, who sees themselves as a writer, who sees themselves as someone who's able to take all of this mess in our brain and make it coherent enough to have just a first couple of paragraphs, couple of pages, and then you're sending it to a trusted writing circle. And to me, that is biggest thing that you said that stuck with me is something we talk a lot about in this podcast and in the Unapologetically Childfree community is community. And like, it doesn't have to be this one specific look. It doesn't have to be just a child-free community. It can be the community of knitters. It can be the community of writers. It can be the community of paddle players. It can be any of these things, but when you have a trusted group of people, to me, that's how fledgling exists, right? Is you were holding on to and like, this is a little weird. Is this what we need to bring into the world? Is this? And then people who know you say, absolutely. And you trust them because I'm assuming there have been times where they're like, maybe not. Let's rework this, right? And that honesty that comes from a community and that honesty of being able to say, yes, this is worth pursuing. This is something to put your time into. And hopefully that was part of it sounds like some of the motivation to get through of writing it and then pitching it. And then, the publishing process of editing and rewriting and adding to and all of that. And here you are with this final product. I can see it behind you. And you've got this like physical thing that is many, many years in the making. And I'm just wondering, as you're sitting here and you're talking about it, it's expanding to, across the oceans. What's it like for you? What's it like for you as the person and the author to just be able to say, hey, I put this out into the world and this is information that I think needs to be there. So tell me what it's like just to be at this point in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's also scary. I mean, I think what was interesting. So I say, like, I've written other things before and, I'll write more in future. I'm working on a new project at the moment. I think it's always hard writing a book because you have so much like existential angst of like, can I even write? You have so many crises, like, this is terrible. Why am I even doing this? What's the point? And so, my writing circle has been so amazing for that, as you say, for community, for supporting. And also many friends and my family and even my own mum, who, despite having never worked in publishing or anything like that, is actually an amazing editor. So there's always that, like, is it any good? But I think definitely with this project, there was that whole other layer of, yeah, okay, I'm not Leah, but it's still very personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard because it's always a paradox. I partly wrote it to explain myself. It's not exactly me, but to show some of the reasons why some people don't want kids or feel that way and how complex it is. I think it's so hard, you're at a party or whatever and it's like, oh, do you have any kids? Oh no, I don't, or I don't want to. Oh, why? And then it's kind of like, I can't just answer that in one sentence. I need to kind of sit you down for like 3 hours and talk you through it. So in some ways that's the book is, right? I primarily wrote it for people like me to kind of feel seen and help explore and articulate what they were feeling. But I also wrote it for people not like me who didn't really understand and thought it was weird to understand better. But then once you've written it, there's a huge fear in people actually reading that. And that's also where the community aspect came in. I think there was one friend in particular who, I mean, I was so scared to share it with my mum because I was like, well, I don't know why. I was just like, what's she going to think about this? I said in one interview that the whole relationship with Leah's mother in the book, it's almost like a love letter to my mum. Like I talk a lot about mother-daughter love and connection because I think it's that thing of, in saying I don't want kids, am I somehow saying to my own mum that she's like wasted her life, or I don't appreciate what she did for me, which is crazy. Why would it mean that? But I feel like I was almost trying to show as well, this is a beautiful thing. And so there was that angle. There was also, I said to one friend who I had shared it with, because I know that she also probably doesn't want kids. She said, have you shared it with any of our friends who do have kids? And I said, no, I'm too nervous. I'm worried they're going to kind of take it the wrong way. And she was so helpful. She just said, look, you haven't written a mean book or a divisive book. The book isn't about saying people who have kids are idiots. That's not the point of this whole conversation. The point is that it's about personal choice. People are different. We make different choices in life on all kinds of things. There's no reason why this choice should be any different. And people should be able to understand that. She said it's a very nuanced book. It recognizes the beauty of motherhood as well. I don't know what you're worried about. And that was so helpful for me because it just helped me a little bit allay some of that nervousness. But yeah, in terms of it being in the world, I mean, overall, as I said, it's a dream come true for me to be a published author. And I've always wanted this book to be out in the US, I feel like, and Canada, but I feel like particularly the US, I could see this topic is so much more difficult and particularly more of a problem in kind of smaller towns, maybe less cosmopolitan places. I'm lucky to live in London, which is a pretty open place.
Yeah.
And I know the US is chock-a-block of small towns. And I've seen
It
so many
is.
people
And
online, posting about how isolated they are if they don't have kids in some of those communities. So for it coming out in the US, aside from the fact that my family background, my parents are also from the US, so that's nice, but I've always wanted it to reach US readers as well.
Yeah, I currently live in Portugal, but I grew up in the States, and most of the people who listen to the podcast and follow me on Instagram and all of that are US based. And the conversations that I've had with people around the child-free topic is there's these two major things. One, there are the people who really just get up in arms about it. They don't understand it. They think it's a failing. They think it is, selfishness in a bad context versus a good one. And then there's this almost denial that there is a divide between, child-free people and those that choose to have kids. I know that you were talking about this relationship with your mom, and I was actually talking about this earlier today, where there was this moment several years ago where after decades of being child-free, I realized that my mom, although accepted and supported my choice, did not understand it whatsoever. And I should say she didn't understand the choice to have the community, to have the unapologetically child-free community, to speak about it loudly instead of like, oh, I get that you don't want to have kids. It makes sense for your life. And almost from the point of view of like, why do we have to be loud about it? And then you get into this space and you're like, because it feels like one in a million. It feels like there's 5 people talking about it, and they're from everywhere, from London to Portugal to Seattle, Washington to New Zealand. And it's like, what about the small towns, or what about the places in between? And books and other media, it's just so important to have the conversation, to have stories, to have people to say, hey, if there's a novel on a bookshelf in a bookstore about it, then it's not that strange. It's not that odd. It's not like I came up with it by myself, right? And I think that's what's so great about books and blogs and podcasts and things like that, and just being able to be like, look, there are hundreds of millions of us who are choosing not to have kids, and it can feel lonely at times, and it can feel all encompassing and overwhelming, and then also very normal. And that's what I'm hearing about this story, is there's this like obsession, but also this like normalization and this like that juxtaposition that happens between those two things. And to me, that's humanity. That's normal. It also sounds like that was very important to you to make this as, aside from the end, which is a little bit of the one weird thing. I like the way that you put that. Is that a literary
I'd never heard it before I wrote it, but then 2 people have used the expression with me, And I'm actually hoping to have an event, it's not like confirmed yet, talking about the one weird thing genre. So when I was, when you've got a book coming out, you look around for other authors that could give you your cover quotes. And a fellow author said to me, I think you should approach Bobby Palmer, who I think his books aren't out in the US yet, but they've been really big in the UK, and that he does have a US release next year. He wrote a book called Isaac and the Egg, also about an egg. I was actually like really annoyed when I first heard about it. I was like, no, they're totally different. But his is actually about grief. It's really wonderful. I read it. I loved it. And she said, oh, you should approach him because he loves the one weird thing genre. And I was like, okay. So I did approach him, and he gave me a quote for the cover, which was amazing. And then recently I met Holly Gramazio, author of The Husbands, which is also amazing, which is a woman who is single. One day she gets home and a husband just like emerges from her attic. It's like she's been married to this person for a long time, like her whole life. Things in the apartment change as well. And there's a whole backstory, but she doesn't know it, but he does. And then basically every time he goes in the attic, then a different husband will come out and her whole life will be different again. And it's amazing. I loved it. The whole thing is like,
This is now being added to my TBR.
The whole thing is
I'm
like
so
a metaphor
for
and it's going to be made into a TV series as well. It's like it's kind of a metaphor for modern dating, right? Because when she's bored of one of them, she finds a way to send him back in the attic. Like, oh, I think I heard a strange noise up there. Can you go up? And it's like, when do you fix on one person, right? Or keep swiping? And it's so good. And so I don't know. I've got no idea. We've just been messaging. Hopefully we'll make it happen, but we haven't actually pinned it down yet. But the three of us might do a bit of a event about one weird thing genre. So keep an eye out if you're interested.
That sounds fascinating. And this book sounds so cool.
I can't remember why I started
need
talking
more
about
in my
that
TBR.
now.
Oh, because I didn't know that it was a genre,
yeah.
but apparently it's at least a 3-book
well,
genre.
nor did I.
At least a 3-book.
But I think, you're that normalizing things, like that's so important. Once you get into the online community, it's amazing how much is out there. And you can start to think like, why are we all going on about this? Like, isn't there enough out there? But I think what's so interesting when I do events and things with like a live audience is how often I meet people who still don't know that any of that exists and haven't found it yet. And so it's also about helping people find it. And you do see the posts as well, the comments like, why are you going on about this? Clearly you're not happy. You must be trying to convince yourself. And occasionally I think that, like, am I trying to convince myself? But I think the point, and this is a big thing in sledging, is it's not that we're trying to convince ourselves. It's more that we are ourselves, because a huge part of sledging is when everyone else and society around you is constantly telling you that you're wrong, essentially, even if it's hard to really be in tune with what you want deep down, because even if you want something, if it's not what everyone else is telling you should want, it can be hard to even accept that in yourself, right? And to feel confident in that decision and feel confident that you aren't going to be lonely and regret it and all of those things. And so I think, people have pointed out as well that plenty of mothers spend all their time posting about how happy they are as mothers on Instagram, and it's exactly the same thing. I think we do have more of a need for it. Mothers do too. There's also a huge conversation at the moment of how hard motherhood is. And so I think mothers as well want to show the positives, and we all need to like reassure ourselves of our life choices and that we've made the right choice, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so my background and what I do for a living is I'm a therapist and anxiety coach, and I focus a lot on helping specifically child-free women, but helping women come to a place of feeling fulfillment and feeling confidence in and clarity in their life. And so often people come to me with this belief that confidence is solid. It is immovable. So once you make a decision, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be child-free, I'm going to move to Portugal. There's this idea that if you're so confident, you'll never have a moment of doubt. You'll never think about the what ifs of changing your mind. So some things aren't changeable. Once you have a child, you can't unchange that decision. And once you choose to be child-free, there comes a point, right, when we talk about just biology and stuff, you aren't able to unring that bell, so to speak, or ring the bell, whatever. One of those. But for me, I can choose to leave Portugal. I could choose to change my career. I could choose to do these things. And a lot of people look at when we have self-doubt, when we have these moments of I'm feeling at a loss, or why the heck did I do this? People go, well, see, that's your sign that you made the wrong decision. instead of going, oh, you're human and you have more information today than you did yesterday. And you're also in a different place in your hormonal cycle. You're also in a different place in the world. There was a new news alert that came out that has you feeling squirrely or any of these things. And too much of our world, I believe, is in this binary state of it's good or bad, right or wrong, yes, no. And any ambivalence is just unacceptable. And I think like you're talking, I mean, even just the title of your book, right, is like it gives this idea that I don't know, it's not like there is a middle ground. There is this continuum of life. There is this place of, I don't know, I love this egg. I want to scramble the egg and everything in between. And I think that's natural and I think that's normal. And when we villainize humanity, that's when we're continuing to just be isolationist. And that's where the loneliness comes in. And that's where the us versus them and the, keep anonymous keyboard warriors, feel very vindicated. And books like yours, having stories like that for the people who say, I'm all by myself, they at least have a book. They have something that they can hide under their bed and know that they're not alone. And I just absolutely love that because, again, I'm an avid reader and I think books are one of the best ways to expand our mind, expand our experience, whether it's through fiction or nonfiction. I don't like nonfiction.
Well, I don't read that much nonfiction either, which is one reason I wanted to write a novel.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, I can talk about that all day. I run a book club here in Lisbon and they all joke at me because it's both fiction and nonfiction. And everything's like available. And like when a fiction book is brought up, I'm like, fine. I don't want to learn, but you still learn in novels. You still learn and you're just doing it through empathy and you're doing it through seeing someone else and kind of sitting in their shoes. And that's what I love about books like this is someone may be a fence sitter like you were at one point and that, other people are and they go, I don't know how to make a decision. And this may give them insight and it's okay to be here. I don't have to force something out.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And I think, in the same way that sometimes, parents feel like they can't say, oh, today was really hard because everything's supposed to be blissful and wonderful all the time. As a child-free person, it can be hard to say like, oh, maybe I did have a moment when I was playing with my niece where I thought this would be nice because you feel like people straight away are going to jump down your throat. So, see, you'd be a great mum. That program, you should have done it. And I think a term that I didn't know when I was writing about it, but when I heard it, I thought, wow, so much of fledging is about that and almost about me processing it is the term cold regret. So I heard it from Zoe at We Are Childfree. And it's basically this idea that there's different types of this whole like, will you regret it? Well, there's different types of regret. So hot regret is the regret that most people think of where it's like, I wish I hadn't done that. If I had my time again, I would do it differently. I wish I could go back and change the past. And like, what have I done? This is terrible. Cold regret is more where which again, we do in so many things in our lives, whether it's ending a romantic relationship or moving to a new city or whatever, where we are at a place where we are able to acknowledge the downsides of a decision and we maybe feel a bit of sadness about what we've given up, but we are still able to recognize that overall it's the right decision for us. And we do that in lots of areas of our life, but we don't seem to accept that you can apply that in this case as well.
There's a lot of judgment in what women do, what uterus owners do with their uteruses, their uteri, whenever it is. And to me, that adds so much pressure. One of the things that I'm reading a book right now, it's not my favorite book in the world, but it's about a very, very naive protagonist in one of those tiny towns of a few hundred people. And because of the teachings of the very, very small conservative town, she's not curious. She doesn't ask questions. She does as she's told and sits in this place of unrest. And because anything that deviates outside of the norm, which is a very narrow lane, is ostracized because she's in a town of several hundred. If you are the one, or at least it feels like the one who steps out of line, it is very obvious, or at least it feels that way. And I think that's where some of this pressure comes from. It can feel as if I'm the one. I'm the one of all of these people. I'm the one who's messing things up. I'm the one who's breaking the mold. And the more conversations we have like this, having books out there that aren't simply, I don't know. One of the things, what is that book that I really, Child Free by Choice, that is so full of like stats and research. And I'm like, this is great information, but I'm bored. I hate to say that because I love the research. Like, yes, agree. Yes, feel validated, but also statistics.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
someone who does a great, I'll do a shout out because we did a joint book tour last year. Who does a great job of sort of combining those is Nicole Louis, Others Like Me. Yeah, she's a mix of memoir of all these amazing women that she interviewed from around the world. Plus she weaves in the statistics. So I would, you know, I said not nonfiction, but obviously I love.
I have it right here. Yeah.
And I did read that and I loved that. But then in a way it's kind of like fiction because it's memoir, so you still get the stories. So
yeah. Yes, exactly. Finding a way to bridge that gap. And I think that's what even conversations like this are doing. So I could talk with you all day. Thank you so much for chatting. Oh, and one of the things that I am so excited about before we end is this. We are recording this ahead of time, but when this comes out, we are going to be doing a lovely, lovely gift for our US listeners to have an opportunity to win their very own copy of Rose's books. I am so excited and so grateful that you are partnering up with the Unapologetically Childfree community to give away one of your just what is the term where I'm like the waiting, the like bated breath. That's what it is. Where we are waiting with bated breath. At least I am for sure. And they will be now that they hear this.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, also, as I mentioned, I am going to be flying on a jet plane to the US in October. So keep an eye out on my Instagram account for the events. I've already announced one in New York and one in Baltimore. And I can share that there will be some in Philly as well. But yeah, all the details are being finalized. So keep an eye out if you want to join for any of those too.
That'll be so much fun. I probably will not be able to make it, but I will ask people to send me photos and all of those things. Before we end, I've had all this information in the show notes and all of that, but for those that are just listening and aren't clicking on things, just let everyone know how they can find you or what they can do to either pre-order the book, if it's pre-orderable yet, and all of that information.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of social media, I'm mostly on Instagram as Rose Diell author. I've got a website, rosediell0.com, which is a great place to go. I've brought together there like all my different reviews from book bloggers, etc., and also other interviews that I've done. If you haven't had enough of hearing the sound of my voice, you can go listen to other podcasts that I've done as well. And in terms of the book, so the kind of official release date is 6th of October. And from that point on, it will be available in bookshops and it will be available for ebook download as well. It isn't currently, it's like a lot US and Canada rights, but it will be available for ebook as well for those who prefer.
Amazing. So one of my favorite places to get books in the US is bookshop.org, I believe it is, and it's supporting local and indie bookshops. So for those that are interested in that, it sounds like potentially after that date, they'll be able to...
You can order it now. So bookshop.org is exactly where I've been directing everyone. And it's already available for pre-order, and you might even manage to get it a little bit early from them. So yeah, get your pre-orders in. The best thing about pre-orders, I always feel like it's kind of like Christmas because you order it and then you kind of forget you've ordered it. And then one day you just come home and it's there and it's a great surprise. So yeah, please pre-order it. And I should have said as well, it's only paperback. It's always been paperback only, which that's just what my publisher does. But personally, I think that's great. I kind of hate hardbacks. I mean, much easier to carry, much cheaper as well for your book group. And we do have book club questions as well.
Easy to hold too.
Yeah.
Like
easier to carry around. Yeah.
Yeah. All the things. No, I love this. I'm actually going to go to socials and just start now saying, hey, you can get it now. You don't have to wait.
Pre-order now.
Or you can pre-order it now. You can
from
pre-order it now.
bookshop.org.
I will definitely do that. Thank you so much, Rose. This has been so lovely. And I'm so happy that we were able to find this time. And I will send everybody your way so that they can hear other conversations about the book and then also send them to get a pre-order.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for everything.
You're
welcome.
welcome. Of course, always. So take care.
Cheers. Thank you.